Hello, everyone. If you are joining us right now, I'm Mariana. This is Expat Relocation Guide. And today I am talking with my friend David, who lives in Merida. But before we get too far into that, I'm going to let a few of you join in, give you a chance to join us and know what this talk is about. So go ahead, and if you're joining me for the very first time, you have no idea what Expat Relocation Guide is about. It's a website dedicated to just giving you information on how to move to Mexico, tips and useful information on retiring and living in Mexico. And if you're just joining me right now, I have David with me, who lives in Merida, the safest city in Mexico. That's what it's known as. And he has agreed to give us some of his time today to talk about what life is like for him there and a few other things that I believe you will be very interested in. So go ahead and comment. Let me know where you're watching us from. Go ahead and put in the comments where you're watching us from, and we'll get started very shortly. I'll go first. I am originally from Mexico City. I was born in Mexico, and it looks like I lost David for a second. There he is. He's back. I'm originally from Mexico City, and I was raised most of my life in Texas, but I'm originally from Mexico City. We have somebody from New Jersey. All right, Emily, welcome. Thank you so much for watching. So if you have just joined us, go ahead and let me know where you're watching us from. It just helps me know where in the world you are tuning in from. Very good. I'll let a few of you join. We'll get started in a little bit. So, David, why don't we start with you? Tell us where you're originally from.
Born and raised in Pittsburgh, but the last 20 plus years I've been living in the Baltimore, Washington, D.C. area.
Okay.
And up until about a month and a half ago.
Right on. So for those of you who do not know, today's live stream is all about talking about David's life living as an expat in Merida. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So David, for anybody who is just tuning in right now, tell us why you decided to leave Pittsburgh and move to Merida.
Well, I'm just at that stage in my life where, I didn't have any more obligations. I had the resources to do this. I'm divorced. The house is gone. My daughter's on her own. My son joined the Marines 2 days before I moved down here. My family is scattered all over the United States, and I really had nothing holding me back except a job. But if I wanted to skip a paycheck and live on, what I've been able to save over the years, one or the other. So I decided to give it a shot. And,
Had you ever been to Merida before?
Nope, just picked up and went.
Interesting.
I've been to Mexico before, but not to Merida.
Okay. So why Merida?
Well, it wasn't my first choice. I was thinking about Portugal for a long time, and I was doing.
Okay.
And then I started thinking about it's really not as easy to get back and forth, get visitors, coax visitors. I mean, the idea of living in Europe is, it sounds great. So I started thinking, how about something closer? And Mexico was an obvious choice. So I started looking at those areas of Mexico that I'd visited before, decided they were too expensive, and they were mostly on the Pacific coast. And I said, well, what's in Mexico on the East Coast? So, started at Cancun, didn't want to do that, but then Merida just kept on popping up everywhere. I started looking, and so I started doing some research, and it is the safest city in Mexico, and some reports are it's the second safest city in North America. So that's attractive. Joined a few Facebook groups, followed, pages like yours and video blogs on YouTube, and just started gathering the information that I felt I needed to make a decision. And it's all out there. You know, people were out there gathering that information, putting it out there for others to actually put to use. So I really didn't have any more excuses. And I'm 56, and I could work for another 9 years if I wanted to, but why?
Yeah, seriously. So did you sell everything in the US? Oh, did you sell everything in the US? You may not be hearing me for anybody who
I
wonders
did.
why there's a
I
lag.
had a townhouse full of stuff that I couldn't believe I collected so much stuff, even after a divorce, you know. And emptying another house, I was like, I can't believe I have all this. So getting rid of that was a challenge, but you know, started early enough. I knew I had to. I had to sell a car. I ended up giving a lot of things away, selling a few things. Um, but yeah, that was, you know, at the end, it's like a rush. Got to get this stuff out of here. Closing on the house tomorrow. Uh,
Wow.
so, but it happened. Made it happen.
Did you drive to Mexico?
Yes, I did. So I brought a 55-pound dog and a cat with me.
Oh,
So
okay.
I was doing some research. I wanted to fly to Cancun or direct to Merida, um, but you know, and bring the dog as baggage in the cargo area because she's too big for the cabin.
Sure, yeah.
So everything I read is like, yeah, this could be dicey. Um, but I called a couple of airlines, and um, one was very helpful, and they said, so I had booked a flight, and so I got the cargo group on the phone. They're like, no, you know, your flights need to coincide with when the cargo office is open and close. You know, you don't want to show
Hmm.
up at 5 o'clock in the morning at our office to get on a 7 o'clock flight, and we don't open until 7. So I had
Yeah.
to rearrange everything, and then I went to book the dog, and I got somebody at cargo again, and they're like, okay, your dog's ready. You know, it's $500. You know, what company are you using to ship your dog? And I'm like, I'm not using a company. And it's like, you have to use a company. I'm like, no, I don't. And it's like, well, yeah, it's Mexican law. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I did my research on this one. I said, what
Uh-huh.
about grandma who's bringing her chihuahua with her in first class under the seat? You know,
Yeah,
she's not bringing it. So the guy
sure.
says, COVID, COVID. And I was like, all right, I'm not going to argue anymore. So I got a ticket home. So I didn't, it's not all the waste. So backup plan was drive to Laredo. My daughter and her boyfriend came with me. We rented a van. And from Laredo, I had to wait 2 days for my driver from Progreso, which is just up the road from Merida. Um, So his team picked me up in Laredo, took me across the border, and we met up with another couple that were coming in from Northern California, and we drove straight through from Nuevo Laredo to Merida. And we only stopped for bathrooms and fuel and food. That was it.
Wow, really? Oh my God, that must have been a very long drive.
It was, and if anybody does it, I suggest just make sure your phone and your pads are charged. You have extra batteries or a good book, because well, the scenery's beautiful. You know, it gets at night. It gets a little boring, and I'm not a
Yeah.
very good sleeper in a van, moving van.
Did you feel so? A lot of the expat groups that I'm a part of, and I'm sure you're a part of them too, have said that driving at night is like really not recommendable and like not recommended at all because of the safety, because there can be speed bumps and sometimes livestock in the middle of the street. Did you feel at all like that was the case when you drove all through the night?
I got a lot of the same advice during my research, and
Hmm.
some of the other advice I got was if you stick to the federal highway, the toll roads, it may be a lot more pricey, but it's safer. You can drive at night. My driver said the only unsafe thing about driving that road at night are the amount of trucks. And if that's as bad as it gets, that's not so bad because you deal with that anywhere. So it was uneventful. You know, the most
Okay.
eventful thing on that trip was crossing the border from the United States, into Nuevo Laredo, and and at the immigration office in Mexico, they hardly asked any questions. It was in and out, and the Americans asked more questions than the Mexican authorities.
Yeah, I can imagine that. We're a little bit more bureaucratic, I guess, over here. So what about your dogs? How
About
did they
guns and
do?
knives. I'm like, yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
the dog did great. That's all right. The dog did great. She had a crate. She stayed in that most of the time. The cat was a problem at first. We went from Maryland into Virginia, and the cat does what cats do, but that was the
Yeah,
only time. So we made it without any accidents, any issues. The
that's good.
dog loved jumping out of the van and enjoying all the new smells and sights. She's still enjoying it.
Yeah. Tell us more about that, like your life in a new country with two pets. Um, I'm sure it's a not only is it a challenge to travel with them, but I assume you have a rental.
I do.
How was it finding a rental having two animals?
I'm sorry.
How did you find a rental having two animals?
How did I find a rental? So, I made a lot of friends on Facebook, right?
Okay.
Ask a lot of questions there, and you get a lot of answers. A lot of answers. The real estate agents cover. So, in the course of preparing to come down here, I joined the Merida English Library. They're closed because of the pandemic.
Mm.
So they were doing some online auctions as a fundraiser, and I won this meal at somebody's house. She Canadian's been here since 1976, married to a Mexican national, and over the course of planning for this meal, we became friends over Facebook. I told her why I was coming down here, and she appreciated my motivations, and we became friends. And I mentioned to her, I said, I just wish I could find a place to live where I didn't have to deal with a real estate agent, somebody I could trust. And she's like, oh, let me talk to my friend. She has an Airbnb that's been vacant because of the pandemic. And so I heard from her, and she's, what are you willing to pay? And I told her 16,000 pesos was my budget. She says, well, that's a little less than what I would normally charge, but um, given the current pandemic environment, let's do a 6-month deal. So I'm here till June, and I'm going to find another place to live. So that was great. And, it's always, personal referrals are always better than, finding something in the old yellow pages or online or something like that. So,
For
and
sure.
it's worked out. It's a great place. I like it a lot. My brother, who just left and went back to New Jersey this morning, um, he's like, hey, let's buy this place. I don't think it's for sale.
You never know. It doesn't hurt to ask if you're really into it.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a landlord that's having trouble keeping it rented. Um, you
Well,
just never know.
I don't think it cost her much money. The property taxes here,
Oh,
she might pay $300 a year, 500 at the most, maybe.
yeah.
Um, but it's good rental income. It really doesn't cost her anything to hold on to it. So, and there's a lot of them like that down here. It's
So if you're just joining us right now, by the way, David and I are talking about life in Merida for him and how he just moved there over like a little bit over 2 months ago.
a month and a half.
A month and a half ago. So he's sharing some really insightful information on how he found a rental, how he drove with animals across the border with his two pets, and not to mention just how he found a rental through word of mouth. So all really good information. Don't worry, this is all recorded, so there will be a replay. But if you're just joining us, that's what we're talking about. So you found a rental through word of mouth, and you were able to then have some friends. How did you met those friends on Facebook? So was it through a group, or tell me more about that?
Well, I met Joanna through the Merida English Library, and then we started communicating on
Oh,
Facebook.
okay, that's right. You mentioned that. Sorry.
And a couple other people I became friendly with on Facebook. Met with them, lunches, dinners, things like that. But people are still concerned, heightened awareness of the pandemic and the COVID, and so it's not easy to get people to go out and do something, especially in groups. Um, so I went to New Year's Eve party. It was nice. It was quiet, socially distanced, and met some people there. But you just got to push yourself, and you're new to a town. and everybody's been new to it. So
Oh,
about chances and a little bit of risks, and maybe it's uncomfortable, but you got to do it, or you just sit around twiddling your thumbs. But I do have other plans here. In my turned out there's an organization down here called Amistad, also called known as New Life, Nueva Vida. And I have a connection to them in my past from college I was unaware of, and a college friend made me aware of it, and I contacted them. And so I'm going to be doing some volunteer work a couple days a week with them, and kind of charted out a plan, a progression path for me to get more and more involved. Because a lot of it depends on improving and strengthening my Spanish to be really helpful. So
and
that's what you got to do. You just got to push it.
yeah, you just got to really get out of your comfort zone
Exactly.
and talk to people, even if it's a little bit uncomfortable at the beginning.
Yes. Even if you have to do
So,
it in Spanish.
yeah, exactly. So earlier when David and I were talking before we started this live stream, he told me he was studying Spanish. So are you doing that through, so for people that don't know what we were talking about earlier, tell us how you're learning Spanish.
I was using Wayzant back in the States, and it was okay, and I probably didn't take it as seriously as I needed to because I had a lot of competing things going on. But when I got here, I started panicking, I guess, but I didn't realize I was panicking when I was
Oh,
panicking.
yeah.
So I was jumping all over the internet trying to find free resources here and there, and I really thought, you're panicking, you have no method, you have no system, this is a waste of your time. And then I don't know what it was. I got contacted by a guy named Pete McClaskin out of LA, and he's got a tutor in the system from Venezuela.
Cool.
And I wrote it clear, and so I signed up with him. So basically, it consists of listen, and pronunciation. Doesn't want to teach anything other than, you know, training your ear, training your tongue, and then starting to move you into verbs and real simple sentences. And then he has online classes. So I do one-on-ones with him, and then he has 6 group sessions a day, Monday through Friday. And I felt that's what I needed, and so that's what I'm doing. So
Okay. How much does he charge you? Do you mind sharing that?
for a year, $1,700. So it's
Oh,
12
so
months.
he charged up front for the year.
Well, he'll make a deal with you. You can do it in payments, but he'll charge you a little bit more for that. So I chose to do it in payments. I was like, hey, what if this doesn't work out? What if I don't?
Sure, yeah. What if you don't stay there for the year?
Yeah, exactly. So we made he'll work with you. And I've seen, he's got a Facebook group, and his site's been growing. He's getting a lot of students, and I like the program.
What's his Facebook group? We'll give him a shout out.
It's Fast Conversational Spanish.
Fast conversational Spanish. Look him up, you guys. I'm going to put it on the screen.
Yeah, drop my name, give me a discount.
There you go. Drop David's name. I'm going to add that and let him know. Can I say your last name? I guess you have it on the screen, so. There you go, you guys. So for anybody who is interested in taking the same Spanish tutor classes that David is taking, it's called Fast Conversational Spanish. Look them up on Facebook and let them know that David Keelan referred you. So it looks pretty sunny behind you. Tell me, what's the weather like today?
It's really nice. It rained a little bit yesterday. I don't follow the weather like I used to, on my phone anymore because I'm
Yeah.
retired. But it's probably 88 degrees, 85 degrees, partly cloudy. It's a beautiful day, and it's perfect wind, breeze. So I'm on the top deck of the house to take advantage of that breeze. And the sun is a little intense.
It feels a little intense to you?
Yeah, today. Now, when I first got here, everybody said there was a cold front, and I'm coming from the Northeast, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Mid-Atlantic area. I felt fine, but the acclimate down here, we're complaining of sleeping with wool socks on and pajamas for the first time in months because it dipped down to 55 degrees at night. And I think for most of us, I think that's perfect sleeping weather. And I thought it was great, but it was, it's just the difference. I'm sure
Sure.
in a year, 55 degrees at night, I'll be
You're gonna
wishing
feel
for
a
a
little
fire.
chilly.
Yeah.
Do you have air conditioning in your home?
Yeah. So the house is, I don't know, probably 150 years old. She renovated it. Her nephew is an architect, and she's got air conditioning in every single room. And I've only had to run it twice. One for a guest, and they were doing some work out in the street one evening, and they stopped at 10 o'clock. I was thankful for that because it's bedtime for me. And then another night, they were doing more street work, and I figured, well, they're going to stop at 10. They went to 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock in the
Um,
morning, right outside the house. It's different, you know. So I had to close up the doors and the windows and turn on the air conditioning for the first time for myself, just so I could get some sleep.
yeah, just so the air conditioning could put you to sleep. The
Right.
noise.
Everybody's telling me that come March, April, that's when it starts to get very hot in Merida.
Yeah.
That's the biggest complaint one would hear about Merida is how hot and humid it gets.
You are in the Yucatan, so yes. If
It is,
anybody does not expect it to be hot in the Yucatan, I'm sorry, but you need to do some research.
yeah, be ready.
Yeah.
So I'm bracing.
However, have you found that because houses are made out of concrete blocks, it tends to even if it is pretty hot outside, 80 degrees might be actually pretty warm. Do you find that it actually stays pretty cool inside the house?
Surprisingly so. People have been living here for centuries. They know how to build houses for this climate. So I think you find the older houses, before technology, you don't see this as often. But, they're 20-foot ceilings, sometimes 30-foot ceilings, so that the heat can rise, and the cold air can fall. And a lot of windows and trying to take advantage of cross ventilation. And so you see a lot of that. But as air conditioning creeped in, became more affordable. Those ceilings started getting shorter and shorter, and a lot of the new construction, you don't have that. So a lot of expats are looking for those old houses because they love those huge ceilings with the wood beams or even the concrete beams and the old tall doors and the tall windows that were designed to take advantage of the wind. So that's why a lot of people are attracted to Central, and even some people are building new. I hear because I'm in the real estate market looking right now, so I'm
Hmm.
trying to pay attention. So some people come down here and they'll build a house to mimic an old colonial because they want to take advantage of the old architectural colonial styles and also take advantage of the natural ventilation that those houses afford and minimize air conditioning usage. But also solar's taken off here big time.
Yeah, really. I guess
Yeah,
because there's a lot of sun and there's a lot of opportunity to capitalize on it.
and people want to reduce that electric bill when they're running their air conditioning.
Yeah, makes total sense, especially if you're in a zone where you get a lot of direct sun.
Like I just got my electric bill yesterday.
Oh yeah, share that with us.
It's 51 pesos, which, for simple math, pesos divided by 20 gives you dollars, right? Just simple math.
So about $25.
No, 51 pesos. It's like,
Oh, I'm sorry, about $2.50.
right.
Yeah.
So that's partly because she's had the panels on the house and she's been putting electric on the grid, so she's built up a credit. So that $51 is just to have a connection, to the power company.
Uh-huh.
But on the back of the bill, last year, this time, she had a tenant in here and and she said they ran the air conditioning all the time. It drove her
Okay.
nuts, even when they weren't here.
I bet.
Uh,
Yeah.
it was 4,300 pesos, which is what, $20?
4,000 would be about $200.
$200? 4,000?
Yeah. Yeah. If you divide that by 20, just for simple math, it would be about
4,000 divided
$200.
by 20, that's, yeah. So that's about what my bill would have been in the United States.
For sure. And maybe higher if you're in Texas. I know that firsthand because our home in Texas gets direct, it doesn't even get direct sun. We have trees all around it. And in the summer months when we're running it pretty much all day, it's a $400 bill.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's like, that's like a normal summer month. So that's actually much, much, much cheaper.
Yeah, and then you could, if the people that month had conserved, they didn't need to be running the air conditioning when they weren't here. They didn't need to run it in an empty bedroom. So, if you conserve and you're smart about it, you probably keep it down.
Sure. Does she include any utilities in your rent?
It includes television and internet and the water bill. And the water bill is less than the electric bill. It's maybe, well, that electric bill, I should point out, that's for 2 months. Okay.
That's true. In
So,
Mexico, your electricity is billed every 2 months.
right. And the water bills, even less than that. She just paid for the garbage for the year. That was 187 pesos, which is $10 for the year.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
So,
it's like dirt cheap. It's
yeah.
nothing. And then
We
property
have the,
taxes are so incredibly low too. So if just for those measures alone, like if you owned a property in Mexico, it's just very low cost in all around from unless you're, constantly renovating it or doing a lot of updates.
right.
But if you buy a turnkey solution, it's very inexpensive.
Yes.
It's not like, paying 2% over a $500,000 value like in the US.
Yeah, it's a good point too, because, when I first got here and meeting with people and expats, and they're explaining to me, there's a lot of houses. I live in Centro, in a neighborhood called Santiago. It's about 5 blocks from the very center of the city. And there's a lot of rehabbed houses here. They're beautiful. Price ranges all over the place.
Hmm.
300, 400, 500,000. But as you walk down the street, you see this beautiful restored house, and you see a house next to it that needs attention, to be nice about it. And so I asked a couple people, especially this guy Steve. I said, why do these houses sit vacant? They're vacant because there's no electric meter on it or anything like that. And you wonder if it'd be a wonderful restoration project.
Okay.
This is a long time, and so now you got all these aunts and uncles and cousins that all own this property, and nobody can agree on what to do with it. And the taxes are so low. What do they care anyways? They're only paying $300 a year, and the house is going to sit there and rot. It's going to sit there and rot. And then it's funny when you walk by some houses that look like it'd be a good restoration project. The families will have painted on the doors, "House is not for sale," because they get so many
Oh,
inquiries. So, but it's
yeah.
getting
Might as well
expensive.
make it very obvious.
Yeah, yeah. Don't bother. Don't bother me. But it's starting to get very expensive in Centro. So when I'm thinking about where I'm going to live and where my next move is going to be, do I continue to rent and explore other neighborhoods? Um, do I find a less expensive neighborhood to live, and maybe renovate? I guess what I'd like to do is buy a project house. Make it
And
my own.
renovate it to your liking.
Yeah. Question is, can I
Yeah.
do it within my budget?
Yeah. Well, you have at least 6 months, it sounds like, on your contract to decide if you're going to rent again or what you're going to do.
Yes.
So how do you get around? It sounds like you hired a private driver to drive you from the border all the way to Merida. So I assume that wasn't your vehicle.
No, I rented a van in the U.S. and David Rivera Sabrinas. He charged me 50,000 pesos. A lot of people think that's a lot of money. It is.
50,000 pesos?
Yeah.
Okay, so like $2,500.
Yeah. So
Okay.
the way I look at it is, yeah, I thought I was a little rich myself, but he got me across the border. He
Mm-hmm.
corrected a mistake as we crossed the border that his driver and I had made. Um, He supplied the food, the fuel, got me here safely, found the right path. Had
You didn't have to
two,
drive.
yeah, he had two vans, so we were in a caravan. And we had four drivers, and it was very safe, accommodating. He had enough room for everything I brought with me. I could have brought more, so
Mm.
paranoid, paring down everything in that. So worth it. My other forms of transportation, I walk a lot because although it's a city of 1 million people, and when you're in Centro, everything's pretty close. If you don't mind being hit up as a tourist every single time, buy a shirt, buy a pen, buy a hat, do this, do that. So I walk most everywhere, and if I have to go grocery shopping and I want to go besides the local Mercado, if I want to go to the Walmart or something like that, I get an Uber. It's like $3 one way, and because I'm not going to carry that stuff, groceries from the
Sure.
grocery store, a mile or so. But if it's a mile or 2 miles away, I'll walk it.
So most of the time you're walking. Have you taken any public transportation, like buses or?
On Tuesday I went and met with the organization I want to volunteer with, and as we were leaving, they asked, how are you going to get back? I said, I'm going to try the bus. And I said, do you know how to get on the bus? And I said, I have no idea how to get on the bus. I don't know which bus. I got to study it. And so they walked out to the main street and flagged down the first bus that came by of 7.5 pesos, and it's easy. It's easy.
Okay.
All the social distancing, everybody was wearing masks, dividers between the seats, every other bench was closed off. They kept
How
all
did
the
you
windows.
know which stop to like which bus went where or how
Well,
you were getting on the right one?
if you don't mind walking, they do have a bus map schedule. I just got to find it. I know there's a new magazine out in Yucatan today. It's got the bus map in there, so I got to go find a copy. But it's online too, but you don't know if you can trust it. But
Sure.
basically, if I just get north, or if I get south, or east or west, where I need to go, I'll walk it from there. I'll just get as close as I can, until I figure it out. So in this case, they dropped me off at 60, 61, and 66, and that was close enough. I knew where I was going from there. And in the way the street grid is in Centro, all the east-west streets are even numbered. All the north-south streets are odd numbered. So if you're at 60 and 59, you know where you are generally.
Sure. Yeah. And also, you probably have walked enough that, you have points of interest that guide you to where your house is.
Yeah, even after a month and a half. Yeah, exactly.
That's good. Well, I'm glad that you took the bus. And it sounds like everybody was actually doing social distancing and wearing masks and being careful about it. How does
When you
that
walk,
feel right now with COVID in Merida? How do you feel?
it's a lot of people are very cautious about it. It doesn't prevent them from getting together. They just want to get together in large groups. Right? And when you walk around Central, you see everybody's wearing a mask. Most everybody, except some of the tourists. You're a guest here. You should be wearing your mask, whether you believe in it
Hmm.
or not. So masks everywhere, sanitizer every time you walk into a public place. You squirt a sanitizer. They take your temperature. I went into the city museum, and they sprayed me down with sanitizer. A lot of the public buildings will do that. There are tents on sidewalks sometimes that, you see them in hot weather to cool people down when they get overheated in hot weather, or they're using it for sanitation. So you just walk in it and get sprayed.
Sprays you down.
That's it. And even a couple bars will do that. So we
Sorry, it
keep
seems.
the economy on. The governor came out yesterday and he said things are getting bad. Unless you want me to do something I don't want to do, just behave yourself. So, but one of the actions he took was to close down the beach in Progreso to car traffic and pedestrian traffic.
And by the way,
So,
anybody who's watching, this is Progreso, Yucatan, not Progreso near Texas. So just to clarify that. Some people will be like, what beach in Progreso?
yeah, so I haven't made
So,
it to Progreso yet. I did make it to Sissel, and that's a beautiful beach. All the beaches are probably within 30 to half an hour if you're driving. If you wanted to take the bus from Central, to Progresso. It's $1 one way. It's an hour one way.
Wow,
So
very inexpensive.
yeah, or you can take an Uber for $30.
So what do you do for fun? Because I know a lot of people. I think there's like mixed feelings about Merida. On one side, it's known as a very safe city, and it's kind of gotten this like, I feel like this spurt with expats who want to move there because of that, because of the allure of that. And then on the other hand, I've also heard that it can be, you know, I don't know this personally, but I've heard that it can be boring or maybe not a lot of things to do. So maybe you can share your experience.
Well, it's not the perfect time to come here. So you look at videos and other sources of information pre-pandemic. There was something going on all the time.
Hmm.
Cultural events in all the parks or some of the parks. Um, so yeah, that's been cut back a lot, but the restaurants are still open. You can still meet people out. And I did notice that the Music Institute has a couple of events going on this weekend, and they're managing them very carefully. So they're trying to open up slowly, but very carefully. So if you're, back to our earlier conversation, you're really going to have to push it. You can sit in the house all day long if you want to, and feel nice and safe. And some people are doing that, and some people are, pushing the envelope just a little bit, trying to be safe. My friend who cooked dinner for me, invited her husband, not going in there, just wear your mask, you know. Or and they also run a university, a private university. You come over here, but wear your mask. So it's kind of like that. So, but I feel safe here, physically safe. I feel safe from the virus, and the vaccine is here. The private clinics are now able to distribute it. Um, so it's hopefully going to be a different world in 6 months, and we'll be back to all those wonderful things that you heard about. One of the things that I heard about Merida was it's a cultural capital of Latin America. So
There's so much culture, so much history there. For anybody who doesn't know that, I mean that's the Mayan Mecca. Like it's yeah,
so I haven't heard of anybody leaving Merida because they were bored. I heard them leaving because it was too hot.
that's good to know. Yeah, I've heard those comments made online, and I feel so a little bit like it may be an ignorant way of actually referring to the city just because it's calm. Because maybe people are used to the chaos all the time. So just for anybody out there, yeah, these are not normal times. And you've made a really, really good point. If you are a visitor coming to Mexico, please just do your part and wear a mask when you're out in public. You're a guest. Um, some of you might not know, but some people don't have access to healthcare the same way that you would in your home country. So just don't be part of the problem, but rather be part of the solution.
It is a very poor economy, and there's some people that have to work. They have to support the
No
family,
option.
and even if they feel a little bit sick, they're going to keep working because they have to. So, to your point, don't be part of the problem.
Yeah, the government didn't like help people out like the US government walked in and helped people out through the pandemic. It didn't pass out any type of unemployment. There was no stimulus given out to people in Mexico. So just be aware of that. People are working because they have to, not necessarily because they want to be open. They probably do feel the same concern for their own well-being and their healthcare. Um, So yeah, just do your part. Wear a mask. Just be aware. So now that we've got COVID a little bit out of the way, so your brother came to visit, and it sounds like he was working a lot of the time that you guys were there. But tell us a little bit about what you guys did. Like when out of towners come, where do you take them?
Um, I had visitors a couple weeks ago too. So, because my brother was working, we didn't leave town. So we walked around Centro. He was fascinated. We walked around Santiago. He loved the markets. We went to the Mercado San Benito, and he was fascinated with that. It's huge, huge market. And candy, anything you could imagine.
Yeah.
It's going to be inexpensive. So he loved that. He liked walking around. Took him to my favorite restaurant, which I can't make a habit of going to because it is expensive and it kills my budget. But it's on the Grand Plaza and
What's the name again?
Pichetta.
Pacheta.
Pichetta.
Okay.
Picheta. Piceta. Pichetta. Pichetta. I'll send it to you. I'll email it to
Okay.
you.
Yeah, we'll give them a shout out.
They've got a rooftop deck, and if you make a reservation there, they say, just remember, this is a restaurant. It's not a bar. Don't come up here and drink just to enjoy the view because it's worth the admission. You know, you have to climb up these stairs, but it's worth it. So when I took some friends there, my early visitors, they like, because it was night, cathedrals lit up, the governor's palace is lit up, the square's lit up. It's just beautiful, beautiful. Then another place called Gastronomia, museum of food. Um, and they have a big, beautiful courtyard inside, lots of social distancing, and that's where we sit. But then, just going to the market, just sitting down, grabbing a taco for 50 cents, and a Coke for $1. So those kinds of things. He was enchanted by those. My friends were enchanted by those. I thought, wow, this feels like I'm in Mexico now,
Yeah.
Then we went to Uxmal, which is an old man ruin south of Merida. It's about an hour drive. Admission's like $25. You have to pay the feds and you have to pay the state admission. So there's 2 admission tickets. It's gorgeous. It's an incredible civilization, and we learned a lot about that. But it wasn't very crowded. You weren't allowed on top of anything because social distancing rules. And I kind of felt bad. There are 3 restaurants located outside of Uxmal, and they're big. Big palapalas, well ventilated. Nobody was using them.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do these poor people stay in business? So we stopped, and we had the place to ourselves. You could easily gotten 100 people in there if you had to, but pre-pandemic days, I'm sure they did once in a while. So we had a great time, and they really appreciated the business. We had great service. So
Good for you for realizing that you could have probably gone to, your favorite place back in the city, but you decided to give them your business. So it's a great way of just supporting the local economy in the most direct way possible.
yeah.
So when you're
To that point, I avoid Starbucks. And by the way, Starbucks is just as expensive here as anywhere else in the world. So.
Okay, good to know. Is there another coffee shop that's kind of a favorite of yours? And what does it cost you to get a coffee?
I haven't found it yet, but
Okay.
there are a lot of coffee shops. I've been to the Italian coffee shop, which is in the middle of town, and that's a decent cup of coffee, and it's like 2 pesos. It's cheap. But unless you're going for a cappuccino or an espresso, that's really getting you. But if you just go with a cafe americano, it's cheap and it was pretty good. But I'm still looking for that perfect cup of coffee. Probably all my
All
life.
right. Let us know when you do. So when your brother was there and he was working, tell us about, what the internet situation was like. I know a lot of people are now considering moving to Mexico and more specifically Merida that are recently become digital nomads. So tell me about that.
There are choices. So you have choices. Now my landlord has chosen Izzy, IZZI, television, phone, and cable. When my brother decided to come and see he was going to work here, I noticed the internet was slow for me, and I ran a couple speed tests and get maybe 5 megs on a good day.
Of download speed?
Yeah.
Okay. So upload speed was probably
half that. So my landlord's like, really? I'm supposed to be getting 40 meg. I said, well, so she upped it to 100 meg. And I might be getting 40 meg now. So I don't know what it is because I don't know enough what kind of technology he's using. So there are some fiber to the curb companies that offer internet here. I used fiber optic service from Verizon when I was in the United States, and that was very fast and efficient. But there are choices. So if I had to choose an internet service provider, it might not be easy. I would shop around. But I'm supposed to get 100 megs for 500 pesos a month, and that includes television and telephone. 500 pesos a month.
So that's for anybody who doesn't know the conversion, that's about $25 for what's supposed to be 100 megs per second of download speeds, but it sounds like, obviously that can vary depending on where you are exactly.
Yeah. So I have Verizon Wireless for my cell phone bill since we're on that. But just to finish up the internet conversation, since my brother was working, he would set up a VPN, do a lot of video conference calling, so he was killing the bandwidth. So I didn't get much of my Spanish done online while he was working, and so it became problematic. So if you're a digital nomad, yeah, shop, look around, make sure you're going to get the speeds that you want. And there's a lot of Facebook groups out there that'll talk about it. Just do a search on their group page, and you'll find some recommendations. But if I transition to cell service, cellular phone. So I have Verizon Wireless, and so knowing I was going to make the move, I wanted to keep my number. Who wants to change their phone number? And they assured me on the phone that, hey, no problem. Your plane covers North America. People can call you. You can call them from Canada, Mexico, no problem. And then I was paying my bill a couple weeks ago, and I was just reading the fine print, and it said, if you're using your phone more than 50% of the time in Mexico or Canada, we reserve the right to cancel or change your plan. Like,
oh, really?
Told me. So, I got in the chat, and they're like, oh, no, you should be fine. I said, well, what? I just read this. Explain it to me. So they looked at it, and they're like, yeah. It could happen. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it could happen. So now I'm looking for a new cell phone plan because I can't be without cell service. So I'm paying $104 a month, and I own the phone. $104 a month. So I'm going to go to Telcel. I'll probably get that for like $40 a month, maybe even less. And you have a lot of options.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely have a lot of different options for not only cell phone service, but there's plenty of companies that will give you a month-to-month plan without you having to sign up for any type of contract if you're just kind of feeling it out before you decide on a long-term commitment. And you just have to make sure that your phone is unlocked to be able to take a SIM card from another country. So if you move to Mexico, before you move to Mexico, you should make sure that your phone is unlocked. Okay. So I said if before you move to Mexico, you should make sure that your phone is unlocked. For anybody who's watching and doesn't know that, just talk to your provider and get the phone unlocked for you. If it actually does have a slot where you can change your SIM card. I know not all cell phones have that.
The nice thing too is the major parks, squares. Paseo Mateo, which is a big shopping district, touristy district. All that city provided Wi-Fi, which is nice.
Is it pretty fast?
Yeah, it worked great. Just don't do any financial transactions on it.
Yeah, be safe.
Yeah, or launch your VPN.
Or launch your VPN. What VPN do you use?
Oh boy, I don't even remember. Let's see. I'm probably not going to use them again because what I was hoping to do was get a VPN service that would allow me to mask my IP address for Netflix and Amazon so it would look like I was in the United States. I'm using private internet access as my VPN. They're not as sophisticated. Amazon found me out right away. So, I was binging on Bewitched before I came here. I know. Nobody looks at me like that. It's a great show, great character.
Yeah. Who cares?
Yeah, you go back in time. It's hilarious. So
it is great.
So I wanted to continue binge watching it down here, and it's $3.99 an episode. So I'm like, oh well.
Oh yeah. So that's not going to happen. Okay. Well, I've heard that Hide My Ass is pretty good.
My Ass?
Yeah, you might want to look into it. Sorry for the profanities or anybody who's watching and gets offended by that. It's not, I didn't make up the name of the company.
I was
But I've heard
selling.
there.
I used to be a salesman. And I was selling, among other things, these fans for warehouses. And I said, "Well, have you thought about a big ass fan?" And the guy looked at me like, "Don't talk to me like that." And I said, "No, that's the name of the company. Name of the company. It's called the Big Ass Fan Company."
Yeah.
And they're these planes that look like, or these fans that look like airplane props because they're for very large spaces.
Yeah. Like big garages,
Exactly.
big commercial warehouses. I'm going to pivot a little bit into something that I know a lot of people are interested in hearing from someone like you, and that is healthcare. So I'd love to know if you have a healthcare policy or if you're self-insuring right now.
Well, I budgeted for healthcare. You know, I have a very detailed budget plan. And maybe go in for healthcare, maybe 300. And then I kind of got wishy-washy about it. And then my ex-wife, and we're still friends, and she's like, "Look, healthcare insurance at your age isn't just healthcare insurance; it's wealth insurance. You don't want to get hit by a bus, and then, you know, all your savings are gone, something like that." But this really resonated with me, so I went back on the hunt, and I got 3 quotes. And I went with a company called AXA. Um,
Okay.
so I budgeted 250, 300. I'm paying 117 a month. The deductible's $2,000 a year, US dollars a year, so it's 117 American dollars, and the deductible is 2,000. And it covers me when I visit the United States up to $100,000, and I will be visiting, family.
Oh, that's good to know.
But all, yeah, it covers all the major medical things. But the regular stuff, a dental cleaning, for instance. So I'm walking down the street, taking the dog for a walk, and there's this flyer flying around on the floor or ground. I picked it up, and it was a dentist advertising his services. And so I took it home, interpreted it. $25 for a tooth cleaning. That was $50 was my deductible for a tooth cleaning back home. Uh, so there's little things like that: eye exams, teeth cleaning, physical exams. You pay for those out of pocket. You just because it's not worth filing a claim, and you're probably not even covered with it anyways. So it's very, very reasonable, the healthcare costs, and they're all Western trained, and you can go into the public medical system if you've got the right kind of visa, or you can buy private insurance. You can go to private hospitals. So again, you have options, and it's good to have options.
Do you, that's a great point that you brought up. And it sounds like you got educated on this beforehand, but did you end up getting a visa or are you in the process of that?
And it's an interesting question. Everybody you ask might have a different experience, but yeah, I applied for a temporary visa. I was hoping to get a permanent visa. So, I met all the financial requirements for both a temporary and a permanent. So I applied through the DC Consulate, contacted them via email, sent them the form, and they said, "All right, you need to send 12 months worth of your financials. You just send a copy of your passport and other documentation." So I did. And about 30 days later, maybe less, I got an email saying, "All right, you have an appointment on such and such a date." So, they asked me to send some more recent documents, and I did that. And I showed up 15 minutes early. I was gone in 20 minutes with my passbook stamped, and I looked at it. It's temporary. I wanted a permanent. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
so I can change that to a permanent while I'm down here. So I got my temporary visa. It was good through April, so I had to cross the border by April, and then across the process here, and that's where I am right now, trying to complete that process.
Sorry, we lost you there for like the last 20 seconds. So you got your visa and it was good until April. You got your visa and
Yeah,
it
so I
was
had to
good
cross the
until
border
April.
by April, and then yeah, and now once you cross the border, you have 30 days to finish the process, and that's where I am right now. So I'm waiting for fingerprints, photograph, and my green card, for lack of a better term.
So when you went to the consulate in DC, did you let them know that you were wanting to process a permanent visa first and they gave you a temporary? Or was that just kind of lost in translation?
It was lost. I'm pretty sure in the form, and I have to go back and look, that I said I wanted a permanent visa. So I think what they did is they just looked at what I had in my savings accounts, checking account over the last 12 months. They didn't look at everything that I'd sent to them. And so if they had looked at everything, I probably would have qualified for the permanent visa. But I think they just looked at, here's this guy's paycheck, here's his checking account, here's his savings account, and that's what they based it on. So in 4 years, when I reapply for my permanent visa, I should be fine. I should be able to get my permanent visa without any
Yeah,
problem. Now I'm here, and I know the process better.
yeah. Yeah, and I know some people just prefer to get the permanent from the get-go because one, they're not bringing a car in, so they don't have to try to get a temporary first to bring their car in and then switch over to permanent. And two, they qualify for permanent, so you don't have to deal with immigration again. But it's honestly not a very hard process for you to switch over from a temporary to a permanent visa. Um,
The only thing I would caution your viewers and listeners is when you have to start the process in the United States for a temporary or a permanent visa, just research the consulate you choose to use. Some are better than others. The federal
yeah,
government here has a process, but each consulate interprets it differently. And I've heard some pretty bad stories. So DC was no problem. DC was so easy. I've heard Atlanta is very easy too. And I just talked to a guy the other day who's trying to go through the consulate in Arkansas. And yeah,
not so easy for him.
pardon me?
Not so easy for him?
Arkansas, no, it's horrible. He decided to go to he's going to fly out to get his temporary visa.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I know, for example, in Texas, the Austin Mexican consulate and the Dallas Mexican consulate have different requirements for income prerequisites for you to apply for a permanent. So they even vary as far as how much money they require you to have in the bank in order for you to qualify for one visa versus another. So yeah, very good point. It's important for you to do your research beforehand and just they have all that information posted on their website. Some are better of updating it than others. So just
Pardon me?
it also doesn't hurt to call.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
But it sounds like it was a very smooth process for you. So if anybody lives in the DC area, you really do recommend the DC consulate.
Sorry, I lost you there.
It sounds like the DC consulate was pretty easy for you, so you recommend that consulate.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Would you mind sharing with anybody if you know what your fees were, if you hired an immigration attorney or anything like that?
Yeah, I definitely hired somebody down here because I don't. Everything's in Spanish. They're not. You don't have two forms. You have one form, and it's in Spanish. So in DC consulate, I did that all by myself. That was $45. And down here, it's another 250 with the immigration office. But because I hired somebody to help me through that process, I'm paying her a fee as well. So I think overall, it's about costing me $350 to finish the
Yeah, wow.
process here.
Very inexpensive.
So yeah, I mean, if you're gonna make
Oh,
it is inexpensive, but it does add up. When you do make the trip and you're making your plans, you're gonna have some immediate out-of-pocket expenses. So don't be thinking, hey, I'm gonna live here on $3,000 a month because that's my budget, $3,000 a month. Um,
okay.
and then all of a sudden you wonder where all your money went. Well, I had to pay driver, I had to pay for my visa. You got all these other incidental expenses. You find rent. You're gonna have to pay first month, second month deposit. If you got pets, it's going to be more. So make sure you got a little bit of a bankroll. You're not going to roll in here spending $1,000 a month, and without those upfront costs.
Yeah, that's a great point. So don't just assume that you're going to be able to get there with your $2,000 in the bank and then waiting for the next paycheck to clear, or for you to be able to clear that month. It may be able to happen if you're very, very good at strategizing your money, or maybe staying at an Airbnb versus having a rental where you need a deposit up front. But yeah, that's a very good point. Make sure that you budget your money well. So let's talk a little bit more about, you mentioned that you have a $2,000 budget. Would you mind sharing with anybody who's watching what your monthly expenses are?
Sure. It's actually, I think if I misspoke, if I said 2,000, it's more like 3,000 is my budget, a little less than 3,000.
Okay.
Because I've got some incidental expenses as a divorcee. So, but just to break it down for you, because my insurance is a lot less expensive than I thought it was going to be, um, it's come down. But for transportation and things like that, and I figured Ubers and buses, I budget 150, and I think I'm going to come in way lower than that. My cell phone service, I got to get rid of Verizon because my budget's $50 for that, and I think that's very realistic. Um, I decided, I don't need help around this house. I can take care of the pool myself. I can clean the house myself. My mom trained me very well for that stuff. So, that's a lot of savings right there. If you're going to buy, if you want help, it's going to cost you 300 pesos a week, you know. So I was eliminate that from my, I get $100 a monthly, but I'm not going to spend that, every month, but I put it away. But the big things, I budget 125 for utilities, but I'm not even going to be spending that, because it's included in the rent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm right at my budget for my rent, which is 900 a month, roughly $800 a month. Groceries, I had budgeted 350, and everybody said like that's crazy. You're one person, Go
Yeah.
to the Cocina Economica, and they have your big meal there for $5, and then you have. So I cut that back to $250, and I probably am right there. And again, my medical 120. Um, and then I'm putting $250 a month away for travel. If I want to go to Uxmal, if I want to go home,
Yeah.
or if I want to go to Mexico City, I'm making sure I'm saving that so I don't have to come up with it magically. Um, and then, a couple things that I forgot, getting mail. So I got to get a virtual
Okay.
mailbox, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's $40 a month. Plus, if you have something scanned or something shipped to you from your virtual mailbox company, those are additional charges.
Mm-hmm.
And then I didn't budget for my Spanish lessons,
Mm.
which are, roughly $100 a month. So even then, I'm coming in at less than $30,000 a year to live here, and that is more than half of what I was spending to live in Maryland.
Yeah. And that's like probably twice as much than what the normal Mexican family lives on.
Well,
Family, not single. So, you're living very comfortable.
yeah, so I could do much better if I'm more careful. I could do much better.
Yeah. That's still incredible though. I mean, I was listening to this podcast with Susie Orman. So for anybody who doesn't know her, she's like this big financial guru, self-proclaimed like financial guru. And she was talking about how she thinks it's crazy that people retire early. And you saw that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's crazy to me that she would go out and say this when if she is truly a financial guru, she should know that a lot of people live on less than $80,000 a year in many parts of the world. So
Susie
it's definitely possible. Huh?
Susie Orman doesn't. Susie Orman doesn't. She doesn't live like the
No,
rest of us.
of
She lives in a
course.
$5 million house. You know. So thank you for your advice, Susie.
Yes, of course. And for you, Norma, that you just joined us and you just mentioned that you're late to the party and you want to know what city he's in. He's in Merida. So he's in Merida, Mexico. And let me post that up here so you guys know what we're talking about. But yeah, he's in Merida. Yeah, Susie Orman doesn't live that way. So obviously she doesn't know how the bottom of us 99 percenters live.
Yeah.
But it's nice to know that even with a $30,000 a year budget, you feel like you can do better. But it's very, very doable for people to live there on, you know, $1,500 to a couple $2,000 a month.
Met a lot of people who do it. You know, people have come visited the house I'm staying at. I think I got a great deal for $800 a month. But you know, if I didn't want to live in Centro, I could do that for $450 a month. You know, but then I can't walk everywhere anymore. But I'm
Sure.
saving.
I'm gonna ask you a few more questions, and then anybody who's watching, I'm gonna open it up to questions to you guys, so you guys can ask David anything you want. And we'll open that up in a few minutes. But I do want to ask you, David, like, are there any surprises or any maybe just are there any negatives that you've experienced so far living in Merida?
No, no, nothing that hasn't been caused by me. Nobody. I'm not really surprised by anything. I walk. Penny's a 55-pound dog. I get a lot of stares. All right, but I'm a responsible dog owner, so I pick up after her. So I get a lot of stares for that too. Um, but I would say, to answer your question, I would say my lack of Spanish is the biggest problem I've had in Merida. You know, I wish I'd been better prepared, but I didn't let it stop me. I think I got a good teacher, a good program. I'm surrounded by people who speak Spanish. I'm being immersed. You know, um, I've already made acquaintances with Mexican friends, and they're like, "Look, it's a marathon. It's not a 5K. You'll get it. You're trying, and people respect you for trying." So, and a lot of people are like, it's great that you didn't let it stop you. And it shouldn't stop anybody. Well, I've met people that have been here for 2 years and don't speak a lick of Spanish. They get along just fine.
Yeah. So it's
But
doable, but definitely Spanish will make your life a lot easier.
it will, and then you pick up a lot of the nuances. You don't understand what's going on if you don't speak the local language. You don't the nuances, right? The
Yeah.
little things here and there. So if you know the language and the cultural experience is richer.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. And it's like that in any country, just try your hardest to learn a few words. There's actually another channel that I highly recommend if you're interested in living in Panama, and that's Panama Relocation Tours. But the owner of that company talks about a few tips that you can do to kind of help you out in everyday situations, and that's making your grocery list in English and then finding the Spanish word for that vegetable or that fruit and then practicing it in a real life situation, so that kind of helps you out to learn that word and everyday things that you probably buy often enough. So I think that's a great tip. All right, so I'm going to open it up for questions for you guys. If you have any questions for David or myself about living in Mexico, or particularly for David about his life in Merida, please post them. If there's anything else that you want to talk about, David, while people post their questions, feel free to let anybody who's watching this or the replay know any closing words or anything you'd like to share.
I was going to say, my ex-wife and I, we adopted our children from Russia, and they didn't speak any English. Right?
Oh,
So
okay.
the rules were a little reversed. I'm in a country, I don't speak the language, it's all new, I don't know any of the people. So kind of simpatico with my kids. But, I look back at that experience and I think about what it was like. Um, so I'm trying to do some of the things that we did for them and we did for ourselves, like label things, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So I just remember, because you try to remember so much, it's impossible to cram. Albert Einstein said, he wrote everything that because you know it's wrong, right? Write it down, sit, speak it. And one thing that's helped is, you know, on YouTube, there's a lot of Latino popular music with Spanish subtitles, and you follow that along, you know, it helps, it really does. So you're out in the street, and all of a sudden you hear a word, and you're like, oh, I understood that. And you know, I'm glad to know that people aren't talking about me. You know, they're talking about other things.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. And you know, the not the dialect, but the accent in Merida is actually different. So you're learning even a different Spanish.
And one of my tutors is from Argentina, and that comes out very apparently. You know, the way
Yeah.
they pronounce double L and the way it's pronounced here. She's always correcting me, and I'm like, no, I'm in Mexico.
Yeah.
I'm pronouncing it correctly. She's, oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. You should know that. And we have some questions here. So, question we have is, what is weather like?
The weather here, you know, I've only been here for 30 days, but I understand it's been relatively cold over the last 30 days, but it's starting to get warm. They're expecting 90s. Today is sunny and breezy, and it's gorgeous, but I understand, you know, the most challenging weather occurs starting around the end of March, beginning of April, and that's the heat and humidity. But other than that,
Okay,
the weather's great.
right on. Another question from Norma is her biggest concern is health and dental care. So, how affordable is this care?
I don't know if you heard Norma earlier, but I'm paying $117 a month for major medical insurance here. And it includes coverage in the United States for when I'm visiting. The deductible is $2,000 a year. But as I said, care, you know, like a tooth cleaning, I'm just going to pay for that out of pocket. I found a flyer. Tooth cleaning is 25 bucks. You know, doctor visits 25 bucks. On my way down, I had an infection on my finger, and I thought I needed an antibiotic. And the advice was, go to the pharmacy. There's usually a doctor, especially the chain pharmacies. There's usually a doctor attached to there. $10 to see the doctor, gives you a prescription. And I went to get, I did go to get some medication, a cream that I use for eczema. In the United States, it's 150 bucks. They didn't have it down here, but they looked at the ingredients, gave me the exact same thing, a generic brand for $1.70.
Wow. Has it worked?
So, pardon me?
Has it worked the same?
Yeah, works the same. It's the exact same ingredients. So I'm not a doctor, I'm not a professional, but I'm saying that if you do your research, I think you're going to find that your out-of-pocket expenses are going to be very reasonable. And most people just pay for it out of pocket, you know, but they carry major medical, not only for health protection, but as we talked about earlier, wealth protection. You don't want to get hit by a bus and then all that money you saved, you know, you have to drop, you know, a ton to take care of a healthcare issue.
And she says, wow. Yes, wow. I agree, Norma. There there are some serious cost savings in not only living in Mexico on your regular things like rent and food and daily activities, but definitely healthcare is a big one. Um, and if you want more information on healthcare for expats in Mexico, a I did a live stream last week where I talked about, well, I didn't talk about, we actually had a broker on from a health insurance company who talked about all the different types of health insurances for expats. So if you missed it, I'm going to post the website here, and it's posted on the website. So feel free to go check it out. If you missed that, Norma, I think it would be really helpful to help answer your questions. But any other questions that you guys have for David, please go ahead and post them. I think it's great to open it up to you guys and really understand what things you guys want us to talk about. So feel free to post any other questions you have right now. I'm seeing some activity on here. I know some people just joined us. So we're talking about living in Merida. Sounds like We've gone silent with some people, so no worries. If you have some questions on the replay, I will pass them along to David, and if David has time, maybe he'll give us some more answers after this live stream.
I'll find time for you. Answer your
Thank you. Well, thank you again so much. I know there was a few technical difficulties there, so just if you're watching this from the replay, just know that the internet can be, you know, sometimes not so great in some areas in Mexico, and that's just the name of the game. So, but we did talk a good deal about doing some research. David shared some really good tips on doing some research on internet before you sign up for anything, especially if you're going to be working when you live there. But we have another question. She is asking, what are the types of activities there are to do there?
Depends. So lots of things. Like I went to a lot of ruins. So I went to the main ruins, Uxmal, which is south of here. Cenotes, if you're familiar with cenotes, you know, the Yucatan Peninsula was hit by supposedly a meteor millions of years ago, and so it kind of flattened the land. So they don't grow a lot of things here, but underneath underneath the rock formations, there's water, and they open up, you know, sinkholes, and underneath is this huge pool of clean, cold water, and they're everywhere all over the Yucatan Peninsula. I haven't done that yet, but you know, I plan on becoming a cenote expert one of these days, maybe even a cenote guide. They're fascinating, so I get to do that. And then the beaches, you can go up to the beaches. But old haciendas are opened up for tours. There are some cultural events going on, eating out, but they're limited. Um, and you know, this Sunday, but I made it too late to get on the list. But there was a group of people up in Progresso that were going to take an ATV tour through the lagoons. So there's a path out there that's, you know, okay for ATVs to go through. I was going to do that, but you know, just get there early enough. They're going to do it again in February. So a lot of water sports, you know, kite surfing. You know, it's unlimited. You know what you can do. I don't think there's any bungee jumping because I don't think there's anything around here tall enough for bungee jumping. But yeah, you'd be surprised. A lot of tours, lots of things. A lot of people take, you know, drive to Cancun. It's 3.5 hours. You know, spend a weekend there.
Yeah.
A lot of. I went out and visited an old cemetery with some people I met. You know, and that was pretty neat.
In the city?
No, we went up about an hour north of the city to a small
Okay.
village and just walked around, checked it out, and walked by the cemetery, and it was fascinating. Nothing's underground because you can't bury anything 6 foot underground here, so everything's above ground. Felt like New Orleans.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Great. I think those are all great things to do. Yeah, there's a lot of cultural activities in the Yucatan. Ruins, beautiful beaches. Cenotes are obviously like just, you know, nature's little sink or little like swimming pools. So they're beautiful. That's great that you're actually taking the time to explore your surroundings and learn Spanish. Sorry, David, I think we lost you for a second.
There's also a group. I'm sorry. There's a group up in Progresso that also it's a kayak group. So they'll just hit the river or the lagoon and just do a kayak trip for half a day. Check out the flamingos, the alligators. Um, there's a guy over here, Yucatan Bill. He's a amateur photographer. He especially is photographing birds. I threatened to come over and to his place and go out with him because I call him National Geographic Yucatan Bill because his photographs are just as good. So there's a ton of wildlife. You know.
So for those of you who are watching, I will get all this information from David, and I will go ahead and write a nice full post about it that has links to all these things that he's talking about. So if you guys are interested in checking out like some of the Spanish classes that he's taking, some of the tours that he's taken, the healthcare information that he gave, I'll go ahead and post it all so that you guys have a really good, you know, text on exactly what we talked about. But yeah, anything else that you guys want David to touch on, go ahead and ask it now. And I'm going to give David a few more, I'm going to ask him for a few more minutes of his time. We agreed on about an hour. So I also want to be mindful of your day, David. But yeah, just go ahead, and if you have any other future questions or any questions right now, go ahead and post them. Thank you so much for anybody who has been watching, by the way, and tuned in. I hope this has been helpful. I hope this has been of value to you. And I want to thank you so much, David, for your time.
You're welcome.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. But again, if you're watching this replay, just go ahead and post the questions, and I'll ask David to clarify if I can answer them myself. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you, David. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend.
I appreciate it very much. This is a great opportunity. Hopefully it's helpful to everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.